Welcome to the most haunted prison in the United States of America, Eastern State Penitentiary. In tonight's episode of the Paranormal Files, we're spending the night locked up with the spirits of ex-prisoners in an attempt to capture paranormal activity on camera. Welcome to the Paranormal Files. In 1787, a group of powerful Philadelphia area residents convened in the home of Benjamin Franklin to deliberate upon prison design and reform in the newly founded America. A Dr. Benjamin Rush was present that night, a controversial figure considered to be the father of modern psychiatry, and he proposed the construction of a prison truly meant to reform the criminal instead of simply hold them. Almost 50 years later, construction began on the Eastern State Penitentiary in the year 1829. The prison was to become the world's first penitentiary, a new, groundbreaking kind of detention center designed to inspire penitence or true regret in the hearts of prisoners. This meant that all prisoners were to be brought into the prison with eyeless hoods over their heads, a practice meant to deter inmates from attempting to escape and to secure their anonymity, to allow for their speedy return into society upon release. However, this intense institutionalized isolation quickly began to backfire, and some prisoners were driven to the brink of insanity due to the extreme periods that they were forced to sit in their cells without interacting with other humans. In each of the penitentiary's cells, there was a light to heaven, aka a skylight, the Word of God, aka a Bible, and what was deemed honest work, which consisted of weaving, shoemaking, and other tasks of the like. This system was inspired by the very devout ways of the Quaker people of Pennsylvania, and initially, the people who created this prison system did not stand behind the implementation of corporal punishment. This would eventually change. The golden rule of silence was enforced at Eastern State as harshly as possible, and a note from the prison in 1837 even mentions putting leather on wheels and putting wool socks over shoes to maintain complete silence within the prison's walls. It's important to note here that each cell also had a working toilet and was heated in a time where even the White House did not have plumbing or heating. The isolation system pioneered at Eastern State would go on to influence the construction and order of over 300 prisons worldwide, from South America to Russia and even Japan. However, this new outlook on how to properly treat inmates was not without its faults. Eventually, as Eastern State began to swell in its population, guards and faculty became more corrupt and new ways to quell rebellion were implemented. These cruel new forms of punishment included a torture method called the water bath, where guards would dunk prisoners in water, then hang them out to dry in the cold outside until ice formed on the skin, binding inmates so tightly in a device called the mad chair that it would cut off all circulation and necessitate amputations, and forced solitary confinement in grueling conditions in a cell block called the Klondike. There was also the inmate torture method known as the iron gag, in which an inmate's hands were tied behind the back and strapped to an iron collar in the mouth, so that any movement caused the tongue to tear and bleed profusely. Remember how I told you that silence was king at Eastern State? Well, in 1833, a man by the name of Matthias Macumsey was tortured with the iron gag for simply talking in the prison. He died as a result of this punishment, from excessive internal bleeding. The history of Eastern State is one filled with madness, suicide, and murder. There have been multiple times when inmates, pushed to their limits, have snapped. One inmate murdered his cellmate with scissors in 1940, and in 1881 an inmate killed his cellmate and then himself. These incidents were common at the prison, especially during the years when solitary confinement and silence was mandatory. Records show that there were over 50 suicides and over a dozen murders within the walls of Eastern State while the prison was in operation. Finally, in 1913, the system of solitary confinement was eliminated at Eastern State, and prisoners were allowed to share cells, work together, and even played organized sports. In 1929, Eastern State's most notorious prisoner was brought in, none other than Scarface himself, Al Capone. Capone's cell was unlike any others in the prison and contained fine furniture, beautiful rugs, tasteful paintings, and a fancy radio that he would listen to waltzes on every night. But Scarface wasn't the only notorious criminal to be housed at Eastern State. There was also Morris the Rabbi Bulber, who found himself at Eastern State serving a life sentence after being convicted as a member of an arsenic murder ring located in Philadelphia. Referred to as a veteran witch doctor and a compounder of charms, Bulber was one of the leaders of the murderous group. They appealed to women who were willing to murder husbands in order to collect on their husbands' insurance policies, and arsenic was not the only murder method used. Between 1932 and 1937, the group was responsible for the deaths of at least 30 people. There was also William Slick Willie Sutton, one of America's most famous bank robbers who participated in over 50 bank robberies throughout his criminal career. Slick Willie and 11 other prisoners escaped from Eastern State in an inmate-dug tunnel that went almost 100 feet underground, but they were all recaptured just minutes later. Out of the over 100 inmates that attempted to escape from Eastern State, only one man ever succeeded. His name was Leo Callahan, and using a wooden ladder with 5 accomplices, he scaled the exterior walls of the prison and escaped. While his 5 accomplices were all eventually recaptured, Callahan remains at large, although today he would be over 110 years old and is presumed to be dead. There is also a dog named Pep who was imprisoned at Eastern State for killing the then governor's cat. He was given a mugshot, a prisoner number, and everything. While this story was eventually found out by the press to be false, and it was revealed that Pep was actually a dog brought in to improve prisoner morale, it's still an interesting part of the prison's history that needs to be noted. After 142 years of operation and holding over 80,000 inmates, Eastern State Penitentiary officially closed down in the year 1971 and was left to rot. And it wasn't until 1994, when the prison was opened for history tours, that it became accessible to the public. In the years that it has been open as a historic site, there have been thousands of paranormal incidents recorded at Eastern State, even though the current management maintains that the complex is not haunted. People have heard phantom screams and laughter echoing from abandoned cell blocks, seen door handles violently jiggling, heard cell doors opening and slamming shut, and have felt touched and even attacked inside of the prison. Former Eastern State locksmith Gary Johnson, who calls the penitentiary a giant haunted house, claims that one day when he was assigned to remove a lock in cell block 4, a phantom force gripped him so tightly that he was unable to move. He described a negative, horrible energy that exploded out of the cell, and said that tormented faces appeared on the cell walls, and that one form in particular beckoned to him to join them. Creepy. Many people have even claimed to have become physically ill by just being inside of the prison building, and a handful of workers have allegedly quit over the years in fear of the powerful force that resides within the abandoned prison's walls. The strangest paranormal story that I came across that surrounds Eastern State is that of the numerous visitors that have claimed to have seen something resembling a shimmering blob that suddenly appears and then fades from sight. I don't know what this could be or why it would choose the form of a shimmering blob, but it definitely seems like there is something spooky happening at the former penitentiary. After going through a long process to secure our rights to film at the prison, we were granted unprecedented access to investigate the walls of this extremely historic site alone, in order to try contact the tortured spirits of the Eastern State Penitentiary. Okay guys, so tonight we have one of the most infamous haunted locations in the entire continental United States of America, Eastern State Penitentiary. So at this point I will have already gone over the history. There's a noise right there. You're like footsteps. In Eastern State, like I've said before in the video, this is a notoriously haunted place filled with a number of different entities. It's estimated that around 1,600 people died physically here in the building, and I mean thousands upon thousands of other people were imprisoned here. They had a lot of inhumane torture methods that they used to try to calm down these prisoners. And at the beginning of the penitentiary's history, the entire prison was actually built as a solitary confinement prison. So all the prisoners here were in solitary confinement. They would move them from cell to cell into different areas with hoods over their heads. So as you can imagine, a lot of people went crazy here, and the people that were already, violent criminals and had these terrible crimes that they committed that were sent here just went even more mad than, they were at the beginning through the process that they were put through just being imprisoned here. But we're here alone in the building. It's absolutely a massive complex. I'm talking, this is the center room behind us. Behind me is cell block 7, one of the notoriously most haunted places in the entire penitentiary. Behind us there's another cell block, another cell block, another cell block. Some of them branch into multiple cell blocks. And that's just the main prison area. After this, we're gonna head to death row, where these inmates waited out their last days before being sent to another prison here in Pennsylvania where they would have been executed. And at the very end, I'm going to go down into the isolation chambers and punishment chambers underneath the prison, where some of these prisoners endured grueling punishments for their crimes, which a lot of people, obviously believe were a bit too far. So yeah, we had plans to be joined by a few other people tonight, but didn't happen. They couldn't make it down. So it's just us in this prison. And I mean, it is just very haunting. Before we head down this hallway, first we're going to start here in cell block 7. Like I said before, one of the supposed hotspots of paranormal activity here in Eastern State. I'm going to turn on this EMF meter, which is just going to read a baseline and see if we can detect any electromagnetic frequency spikes when we're down here, which obviously in a lot of these areas you shouldn't be having these spikes because it's an old, mostly abandoned prison, but let's go. There's just like a tap up there. These cells are all extra creepy, man. It's hard to imagine people being, isolated in here. So nothing yet here on the EMF meter. I'm just gonna set that down right here. Okay, to anybody here in the Eastern State Penitentiary who was imprisoned here, was punished here, or who possibly died here. My name is Colin, and we are here to talk to you. We're not afraid of you. We're not going to hurt you. And we're not going to try to help you because we don't know if we can or not. But we do want to communicate with you just to make sure that you're actually there and that we're not seeing things and imagining the activity that we think is really happening around the world. So with that, we open ourselves up as vessels or portals, if you will. You can come through and communicate with us, and hopefully we can hear your voice or see you. Feel free to manifest in any way that you'd like. Well, do you want to go infrared for a little bit? I can't believe how dead quiet it is. If there's someone here with us, could you give us a sign by knocking on something, maybe banging on the cell that you're in, walking around, using your voice? I think just about any time we hear something pretty major in here, we're gonna be able to count it as something odd because, I mean, it's just damn quiet. Look at that. It hasn't rained, so there's no water dripping. The doors are open, so the temperature is basically the same inside and out. No air conditioning. This place really is big. For Eastern State Penitentiary, so you'd see right there the hospital. Got the courtyard area right here. This wing definitely has a very eerie vibe to it. This one's got a creepier vibe than the other one for sure. In here, we will find the actual surgical suite. So you can see right here, interestingly enough, this is where Al Capone got his tonsils removed, right here. Here's what it used to look like. No, but it's way cleaner. If you're here with us in the surgical suite, I invite you to walk on over to me. I'm holding this little device in my hand. It's got a red tip. Can you answer me a question? Are you here? Are you here with us? It's like the isolation chamber quiet. It's like, I can't believe how quiet it is. Is there somebody here in the surgical suite? I have a really bad headache in here. Did you die here in the surgical suite? Could you knock on something to let us know yes? Or knock twice to let us know no? So they actually give people medicine and food through these little doors. That's crazy. Like, really sad. Colder. Oh, well, right here's a door to outside. But and hydrotherapy. Here's the lab. Definitely got an eerie look. And physiotherapy was right here. So many people died here, it's insane. Even people who worked here are now dead. Here's hydrotherapy. Okay, so halfway. Oh, just saw a weird little ball of light on the camera, but I didn't see any dust in person. And usually you can see the dust actually floating right in front, and I was looking right at the air and I didn't see anything, but I looked down at the camera and I saw something on the lens right here. Like that right there, I can see that's dust. Okay, anyways, so here's half of the hospital wing. Damn, this looks like you can't really even, you can see kind of the light coming through the windows up there, but in this wing it looks like the set of a horror movie because of the really dim lighting that only we can see. It's so cool. There's some movement. Is there anybody here who died here in this cell block of Eastern State Penitentiary? Because if you did die here, we are here to talk to you and to hear your side of the story. So if you're here with us, here in the hospital wing of the prison, can you give us some sort of a sign? Very cold. Really cold. Just on my legs. Are you down there at the end of this hall? Oh, this feels good. This should be noted to anybody online that all these little doorways that you're seeing on video are actual old cells. Many of them, obviously, solitary confinement cells from back when that's all this prison served the purpose of, to be a solitary confinement prison. These obviously here served as medical cells where people had their own beds, were waited on by nurses and attended to, and obviously where many of them died. So It gets really dark right here for some reason. Why? So here at the end of this hallway is where, oh man, this is a really bad vibe down here. It's like tangible bad energy.
Yeah, I don't... Okay, get your monologue on with.
This is the end of this cell block. Peyton, you can show those doors right there. Can you see them?
No.
It was in, can you see it there?
No. It's too dark.
Oh man, look at that. It was in these cells right here with the shattered glass, probably caused by people that were in here banging on the windows, where a lot of the patients who were deemed mentally unfit to be housed in normal cells were held. These were the extremely, easily agitated, aggressive, mentally, sometimes declared officially mentally insane patients. This is where they were held. You can see these doors very thick, and these cells only have a window at the very top if you shine it in there and look.
Can't even see it. It's so dark.
It's straight up eerie down here. Were you kept down here because they thought you were too dangerous? To be allowed with the other prisoners? And how did that make you feel? To the next cell block. So we've already been inside of cell block 7, which was where we started out the night, one of the hotbeds of paranormal activity. We were just in cell block 3, which housed the actual hospital for the prison back in the day, and obviously a lot of people died there. Now, to kind of mix it up, cell block 4, which is right behind me right here, is kind of one of the darker areas in the prison, not as much natural lighting. It just has that, eerie look to it. Just actually looking down the hallway, it actually just looks really creepy, just to me. Peyton, we were talking about it. But a lot of people report that out of all of these cell blocks in the penitentiary, cell block 4 has some of the most active energy and some of the darkest energy. This was an all-male cell block, so a lot of that, kind of typically angry or violent energy here from some of the offenders that would have been locked up here in this cell block. But we're gonna walk back and try to contact whoever is left in this huge block of the prison, and it's pretty creepy. And yeah, let's do it. Here we go. There's so many intros already tonight. To whoever is down here in cell block 4, we are not afraid of you, and we don't know if you're here yet or not. This is creepy down here.
Mm-hmm.
This is creepy down here.
Mm-hmm.
This is creepy down here. Hear how dead quiet it is, too?
Yeah.
I hate how close we are to these. It's really creepy too. I know a lot of you were probably wrongfully incarcerated for crimes that you maybe even didn't do or were accused of back in the day. So if we can help you clear your name, we would like to be able to do that. But in order to do that, you have to come out and speak with us. We are not afraid of you. You cannot scare us. So feel free to manifest this energy in any way that you see fit or possible. But to help you out here, it's myself, Colin, and Peyton. We're going to turn off this light that we have so that you can manifest your energy in whichever way you would like to.
It is crunchy.
Here. Look at those guards grabbing an inmate by the throat. This guy could be here right now. So, we have 2 more locations left tonight. We've already been here a couple of hours. Behind us right now is the death row block here at Eastern State Penitentiary, where the inmates who were sentenced to die would have waited out their final days. Now, there were no official executions ever held here at Eastern State Penitentiary, which is pretty surprising given how large this building and complex is, and the fact that a lot of these smaller jails had executions, even here in Pennsylvania, like the jail where the Molly Maguires were executed up in Jim Thorpe. Obviously, this was a place that saw a lot of extremely violent people or extremely troubled individuals, even people that were potentially wrongfully convicted of crimes and sentenced to die. So the emotions from these prisoners and people that were held here would have been very strong, very intense, and obviously, for the most part, very negative. But we're gonna go enter the building now, see what we can feel, see if there's anything active left here. Once again, on the tier of supposedly haunted places here, from what we've heard, people have passed out in this building. There's been, a number of different sightings, physical sightings of apparitions here in this building, and yeah, let's go see for ourselves what's gonna happen here on death row. This place is the area that gave Peyton and I the willies before. So like I pointed out earlier in the narration and intro, it's kind of interesting that the little leftover pieces of metal, like you can see right here, Peyton, on the floor, were used as protection for the guards, because some of these inmates here on death row were so violent or dangerous that they would actually try to strike or attack guards as they walked by doing their rounds. Ugh, it feels really bad here.
Mm-hmm.
You want to turn the light off in your infrared?
Yeah.
I really don't like it here. This is the first time I've felt this energy this whole night.
Yeah.
I really don't like it. Hi, my name is Colin. I'm here with Peyton, and we are here to talk to you. Can you tell us who you are, or what your name is? Or even give us a sign that you're here by maybe banging on your cell door, moving something in the room, walking around, giving us a tap. So we've been here. I know I've done a lot of intros tonight, but there's just so much history and so many locations here within the penitentiary that we have to explain. But Right behind me, as you will see, is what's known as the Hole, or Klondike, I think is what it's called. This was actually the punishment area for most of the prisoners. It was a sequence, or it was a series of 14 isolation chambers and areas where these people were punished, and there were a lot of really creative and, obviously somewhat sadistic ways that people were punished here at the prison. And it's become known, this area, the Hole, has become known as probably the most active paranormal hotspot within the penitentiary. Now Peyton doesn't want to come down with me down here, so I'm going to head down completely alone. I haven't actually even been in the area, even though we got a tour earlier, and I've only seen it from behind a gate, so I'm a little freaked out. Well, I'm very freaked out. And I guess it's time for me to head down to the Hole. So these were all the isolation chambers in which these prisoners were stored and kept in, obviously pretty brutal conditions, especially when it got really hot in the summer and there's no heating or there's no cooling or plumbing. So obviously this is the area where the really bad, the bad of the bad people would have been sent, and they would have suffered down here. So that probably created some sort of a negative entity and a negative haunting. So I'm gonna try to contact whatever is down here, whoever's down here. There's somebody down here in the hole with me. Could you give me some sort of a sign to let me know that you're here? Could you make a noise to tell me what cell you're in? Or where you are in this room? Why were you sent down here? So I hear movement from beyond those doors, which is the rest of the old cells that they have sealed up. Well, I'm gonna do something really hardcore real quick. I'm gonna turn off the lights completely. What the f? My hand just got like really hot. That's weird, but I'm gonna turn off the lights completely and just see if maybe this stuff is shy. Maybe whoever's down here is shy. I don't really know at this point. Paranormal activity doesn't follow patterns. It's not like if you turn the lights off, it's gonna happen. And if you keep them on, it's not. It's just hard to understand. So now that I'm here in the dark, is there anybody here in the hole with me? I feel like someone almost breathing on me. I don't like this. it's pitch black down here. You can't even see what I'm looking at besides when I'm looking at the camera screen. It's very, 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 I mean, it's pitch black down here. You can't even see what I'm looking at besides when I'm looking at the camera screen. Can you give me a sign that you're here with me? Could you throw a rock or bang on something? Just want to know why you're still here if you are. Okay. Are you down here? Right there, that sounded like breathing. It's kind of creeping me out. Okay, thank you to whoever's down here for allowing me to come down. But please stay down here. Well, it's definitely freaky down there and hard to breathe. At the end of the day, I don't know if Eastern State is haunted. I don't doubt that it is, but it seemed like the energy didn't really want to interact with us that night, if it was even there in the first place. Contrast our night at Eastern State with our absolutely insane night at the Pennhurst Asylum Complex that same week, and it seems like there's absolutely no comparison. I have to admit, for a place so routinely referred to as America's most haunted prison, I was a little disappointed that the spirits didn't choose to show themselves that night. However, due to the mysterious nature of the paranormal, I can't hold it against them. I don't understand what spirits are, what they're made of, or exactly how they do what they do, but whatever is happening, and many times it happens right in front of our cameras. Sadly, it just didn't that night at Eastern State. However, I wanted this episode to be a history lesson of its own and an in-depth private investigation of Philadelphia's most haunted prison. Either way, Eastern State Penitentiary was definitely the largest location that we have ever attempted to investigate to date on our channel, and I sincerely thank you if you're listening to this monologue and made it through the whole video. You rock. Our Halloween series is just about to begin, and you have no idea what kind of intense paranormal activity we captured in California. But until then, be sure to keep your nightlight on tonight, for you never know when the boogeyman is bound to strike. Thanks for watching, we love you guys, and stay spooky.